All right, this video is for the last three senses that we have to talk about. So we have touch, we have taste, and we have smell. So touch, in class I did a couple demonstrations, kind of hard to be able to demonstrate here, but hopefully you'll get the picture. So touch is going to be very tricky depending upon what we're talking about, but one was a 2-point touch threshold, of test of your threshold. So what we did was I gave students 2 toothpicks, and they paired up, and they had to hold the 2 toothpicks about 1 centimeter apart, and they were with partners, and somebody was holding the 2 toothpicks 1 centimeter apart, and they went and touched their partner on their face with the 2 toothpicks, and then they also touched their partner on their leg with the 2 toothpicks. And you can try this at home. But what they found is that there is a difference between if they felt it as 2 touches or 1 touch. So did they feel the 2 toothpicks as 1 touch or 2 touches? So the 2-point touch threshold is the idea that it's measuring the distance between the stimuli, so between the toothpicks, before they actually recognize it as 2 touches. On your face, if you try this, as long as they are, far enough apart so they can't be right on top of each other, but as long as it's far enough apart on their face, they will recognize it as 2 touches. But the same distance on their leg, they will see as 1 touch. So it shows that the distance varies over the areas of your body. So there are some parts of your body that are obviously more sensitive than other parts, like, for example, your face. Face is more sensitive than your leg. So your leg would, for example, not notice or recognize that this would be 2 touches, and it would feel like 1. Now, the other part of this is what we call touch localization. We did another demonstration of this in class where I had everybody, and you can try this, is that you just lightly tap your 2 pointer fingers together on both hands. Lightly tap. Think about this. Where do you feel the sense of touch? Okay. Probably, if you really concentrate on where it's coming from, you're probably kind of recognizing that you can feel the sense of touch in both fingers, right? Now, if you lightly tap, very quickly, lightly tap your bottom lip, okay? Think about where do you feel that sense of touch? In your lip or in your finger? Probably your lip. Now, try it with your touching your finger to your ankle. Where do you feel the touch? Your ankle or your finger? Probably your finger. This is what we found is that it depends upon the length of the pathways from the stimulated parts to the brain. So in other words, what we're saying is that, for example, your lip is a lot closer to your brain than your ankle. So it makes sense that you feel the sense of touch in your lip rather than in your finger. Whereas with your ankle, your finger is a lot closer to your brain than your ankle. So therefore, you feel the sense of touch in your finger. When you do the 2 fingers together, it's pretty much equal distance, so it feels the same, right? That's the idea of touch localization. Now, going along with touch, we can also talk about pain. Now, I don't know what the story is with this guy, but yes, he does look like he's in a lot of pain right there. Now, there is a theory called the gate control theory that does explain how we experience pain. So, according to this theory, our spinal cord has this gate that basically blocks pain or allows it through to the brain. So if the gate is open, the pain reaches the impulse of the brain. If the gate is closed, those incoming impulses from large fibers from the brain, it's going to close it off from that, and it is going to open it by impulses from smaller fibers. So this also explains why, for example, massages or heating pads or an ice bath will help with pain because it's closing that gate, right? But after you get out of the massage or the ice bath or take away the heating pad, after a while the pain will come back. The pain didn't leave, it's just that you were diverting it from your brain. Now later when we talk about hypnosis, you will also find that one other successful way for some people to be able to block pain is by simply diverting your attention from it. So you divert your attention from it by, for example, maybe hypnosis. Now, pain does have some psychological influences as well as social cultural influences. Psychologically, we tend to remember the pain that was highest at the peak point of the pain, and maybe the end point of the pain. And that's about it. So, you know, you always see these in doctor's offices when you go in because you have pain. They will ask, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, you know, how much pain do you have, right? Now, there's lots of examples, and you may have a personal experience with pain. And think about when you've had maybe an injury or when you were in pain, and how you can reflect back on it now and think about how painful was it. I remember, for example, when I was pregnant with my first child, I was very, very nervous about going through labor. I was very nervous about it's going to be very painful, and it's just not gonna be good. And so I talked to my mom about it. You know, obviously she had 3 kids, so hey, she should know something. So I talked to her about it, and I was telling her how very nervous I was about it, and she told me that, you know, honestly, I don't remember it being that painful, that bad. I'm like, Mom, seriously, how do you not remember? It's childbirth. And in her case, there was no epidural. How can you not remember it being painful? Well, the thing is that you remember maybe bits and pieces of it, but it doesn't really stick in your brain. So it's a lot about, you know, how we perceive it. For me, now that I've actually had 3 kids, and it's been a while since I've had my last child, I remember that it was painful, and I vaguely recalled when I was having my second child, actually saying, I can't do this anymore, and my husband looking at me and saying, it's kind of too late for that. There's nothing, he's coming here regardless of whether you think you can do it or not. He's coming, okay? But I don't really remember how bad it was. So you do kind of tend to forget. Another example, my dad actually recently had surgery. He found out over the summer that he had prostate cancer, and he had his prostate removed. So I've been talking to my mom about, you know, how bad is the pain. And last year, my dad also had Lyme disease. Now, he's not usually this you know, susceptible to diseases or anything, but he had Lyme disease last year, which he said was really painful. So for him, he has this sense of, he talks about now that, you know, he had surgery to remove his prostate, and he talks about how this is not nearly as bad as Lyme disease. So there is, I guess, comfort in that. Now, we also have social cultural influences on our pain. We are actually very empathetic people, and when others experience pain, we experience more pain because of we're seeing what they're going through. So I love this picture where it says, I know exactly how you feel, and they both have arrows in the butt. Same idea of, you know, have you ever watched any of those blooper reels where, you know, they're going through, somebody's going through something physically, and, you know, they injure themselves, and you're watching it, you're like cringing, you're like, oh, ow, oh, that's gotta hurt. There's been brain scans that show that your brain is actually basically being activated by that as if you were actually hurt. So that's kind of an interesting thing about pain. All right, so we're done talking about touch. What about taste? Well, taste is based off of the bumps on your tongue, as you probably already know. So our taste buds. These are our taste receptors. Some of them are more sensitive than others, okay? But we do have 5 basic tastes, and I do have a picture of it later on. Now, our taste receptors do reproduce themselves every week or so, which is a good thing, because think about it. If they didn't, every time you burned your tongue or burned your mouth, you would damage it beyond repair, and you eventually would not be able to taste anything, right? Because you would damage them to the point of, you know, beyond any help or repair. So they are reproducing every week or so, but the problem is that they also, over time, as you age, they will also be less sensitive, and so you will not pick up taste as well as you once did. So oftentimes what happens is that, for example, adults, you will find that, you know, younger adults prefer very sweet wine, for example. But as they age, they don't like the sweet wine anymore, and they prefer more drier wine. Okay? Kind of an example of how our taste buds change over time, simply because they just lost their sensitivity. But sensory interaction does enhance or diminishes our sense of our taste. We do have 5 basic tastes. So we have sweet, salty, sour, bitter, and umami. You know about that one? This one is newer. This is kind of like a meaty kind of flavor, savory, you might say. Okay, but the sensory interaction is this idea that our sense of smell also influences how we taste things. So what I did in class, and you can try this at home, is that I had everybody go and close their eyes, and with one hand they had to plug their nose, the other hand they had to put out in front of them. Now you have to have somebody else to be able to do this for you. And I gave everybody a starburst in their hand that they were holding out, and so with one hand they kind of had to unwrap their starburst, and that was kind of hard. But with their eyes closed still and their nose plugged, they had to pop the starburst in their mouth and chew and try and guess what flavor starburst it was. And then after everybody had, an idea of what they thought, then they let go of their nose. It's amazing. Try it. All of a sudden, wow, it's this taste explosion. Because, okay, our other senses interacted with our sense of taste. And so part of our sense of taste comes from not only our sense of sight and what we see, but also our sense of smell. We also have other sensory interactions, like, for example, volleyball, right? The hearing of the slapping of the volleyball, it says, helps to orient our vision to its location, because we can hear it, we can see it, and they go together. All right, so that's all I wanted to say about taste. So what about smell? So how do we smell? Well, we do smell because actual molecules of the substance will travel through the air to the olfactory cells at the top of our nasal cavity. So if you think about this is kind of gross. Think about this. That skunk that you smell, there's actual particles that are going up your nose from the skunk, right? It's kind of gross. Or all the other weird, gross things that are out there. But that also explains really good smells as well. So these olfactory cells wave and they respond selectively, and so that will get transferred to your brain. No, I'm not going to go into any other more parts of the nose. That's it. Okay. Now, anosmia is this inability to smell. So even this really fragrant stock pot here that has garlic and cinnamon, and this is a very weird concoction, lemon, and all these things that normally would smell a whole lot. Anosmia is the idea that we can't smell at all. Now, at the very beginning of the semester, when I was asking everybody questions, and remember you had to pick a number on the list, and that corresponded to a question, and everybody had to answer it. One of the questions, and you may or may not have gotten this question, was if you had to lose one sense, which sense would you choose to lose? And a lot of people choose smell because they think, oh, what's the big deal? It's smell. Who cares? But think about it. Smell is interacting with your sense of taste. So when you did this, plugging your nose for starburst kind of a thing, okay, that affected the taste, and it just tastes like nothing. It's blah, right? Whereas if you have anosmia, that's what it tastes like all the time. So not only are you losing your sense of smell, you're also losing your sense of taste, and that kind of sucks. Now, the effects of fragrances can actually affect us positively, negatively. Women generally are better at detecting smells correctly than men, although obviously there are some men that can pick up fragrances better than women. And they can affect you biologically. You may or may not know this, but you do have a smell. Everyone does. Everybody has this natural odor, right? Which can naturally attract people of the opposite sex. There are people that can be attracted because of your natural odor. It can also affect you biologically. It is a known and proven fact that when multiple women, for example, live together for a long period of time, their menstrual cycles start to coincide, and so they menstruate at the same time, they get their period at the same time. And also going along with this, because during menstruation women put off more of their smell, that may attract the opposite sex more so than any other time of the month. So think about that for a minute. And then lastly, pleasant odors can also affect productivity. There is actually studies that look at for example, piping in smells to a workplace and increasing productivity. Now, you have to be careful about the smell. You can't make it, for example, chocolate chip cookies, because then they're going to be distracted by the thought of eating chocolate chip cookies. But something pleasant is actually increasing productivity, whereas obviously unpleasant smells decreases productivity. All right, that's it for now. Let me know if you have any questions.